Welcome to Evan Talks Podcast, a podcast about my, your, and our mental health journeys. If you enjoy the podcast, it's available every other week, and why not follow us on Instagram and Twitter? Hey guys, before we get stuck into this week's episode, I wanted to share with you that Evan Talks pin badges, as mentioned in episode 3, are now available to order. The pin badges cost £10 each. All profits are going to Mind and Samaritans. So if you'd like to order yours, please email evan.talks2020@gmail.com with your full postal address and name, and I will give you payment details, and that way we can get them sent out to you in first class post. Thanks very much and enjoy this week's episode. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Evan Talks. Very happy today because I've got two people that we've had on previous episodes back with me, back by popular demand, most requested people to have back. So I've got Dave Crowe and Ken Ball. Thank you very much, both of you, for joining us.
Pleasure.
So yeah, we're going to be just having a bit of a kind of COVID episode, really. So kind of, I mean, as parts of the UK are now reopening and life is slowly, I'm not going to say going back to normal because it's definitely not, but life is slowly resembling some kind of normality for some people. I thought it would be good to kind of catch up and kind of see how the last few months have been for each of you guys, and kind of talk about what your feelings are about the future as we go out of COVID. I mean, although we both, we all work for the same company, I'm just going to clarify that all of our talking points and opinions today are purely our own and don't represent the companies that we work for. So just put that disclaimer in there. But also just to kind of talk about the hospitality industry as a whole, I think, because that's the far hardest hit one at the moment, from the whole lockdown period and everything else. So first things first, how have you guys been the last few months?
Wow, it's been interesting for everyone, really. The sort of unprecedented time. I mean, obviously, none of us in our lifetime have ever experienced anything such as this, with the lockdown and a complete standstill to everything going on around the world, really. So yeah, like the scale of it's just been unbelievable, and yeah, just I think that the speed at which it changed as well, because obviously we see in the news, like from sort of December time and through January, February, it was kind of like building up around the globe, but you kind of, at the back of your mind, you kind of didn't think it would ever get here. Mm-hmm. I guess probably a bit of naivety of like our little island of the UK that we'll be all right here, but it didn't quite turn out that way, did it? So.
Well, it shut down overnight, essentially, didn't it? Yeah. Just everything, boom, shut.
Well, yeah, I think even at the end of February, going into March, we were all at Goodwood talking about setting up for members' meeting.
Yeah,
and that it was that week that it was meant to kind of kick off, and suddenly everything changed. You know, we were on site, we were doing build, we had kit coming on, and then overnight, plug pulled. And we kind of went into this, so very, very fast, scarily fast, to be fair. And like I said, it was over here, we kind of, we didn't really see it coming. I think even when it was in Europe in a huge way, I don't think anyone saw what it would do to the UK. And I think that was the same, even if you look at the US, they could see what was going on in Europe, and the same thing. They didn't really think that it would hit them in the same way that it has. So yeah, it's very scary.
Yeah, well, parts of the US are still very ignorant to the whole thing, and they deny it's even happening. And I think
that's a whole other episode.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing. I mean, I could probably start a new podcast just on that. So, Dave, what have you been doing during the lockdown when it was in its entirety? What sort of things were you going through?
So yeah, I mean, initially, so I live on my own in the flat. I've got 2 kids, but they live predominantly with their mum. So yeah, when lockdown happened, it was kind of a bit daunting, just a bit anxious about didn't know how long it was going to go on for. Didn't know if I was just going to be stuck in this flat on my own for the rest of my life. I wasn't too sure. But thankfully, like my girlfriend who lives up in London decided she would come down as well, because she lives in a flat share, and decided it would be better for us to just stay together during lockdown. So that was like a positive. But again, a slight bit of anxiousness because we hadn't been going out that long, and then all of a sudden to be locked in the flat together 24/7, I was like, oh, this could go one of two ways.
Yeah, it's a make or break situation.
Yeah. But thankfully it went really well, and we got on really well, and it's probably made us stronger in the end, which is great. But yeah, we just started. Like before lockdown happened, I'd been training to do a marathon, the Reading Half Marathon, which we were trying to raise some money for some charities, and in particular the British Paralympic Association.
Yeah.
Obviously to help them get out to Japan for the Olympics, which, as everyone knows, isn't happening now. It's been postponed. So yeah, we just sort of decided initially, when lockdown happened, it kind of, I guess, like a lot of people, you kind of weren't sure what to do, and we kind of didn't do a huge amount. Started doing a bit of baking, cooking, having the odd drink here or there, which could have become a slippery slope. And probably about 2 weeks in, we realised now let's like try and be a bit more positive about this and try and come up with more creative things to do to keep us busy. So we were doing like sort of arts and crafts things. Girlfriend used to do a lot of drawing, but hadn't for a while, so she started doing a lot more drawing, just doing little designs. As you can maybe see, I like tattoos, so she started doing some tattoo designs, which once the tattoo shops open up again, I'm going to get a tattoo done to remind us of lockdown. And yeah, we just started doing more exercise, yoga, just trying to really keep positive about it all and try and keep as healthy as we can, because it's difficult in that situation to sort of keep that sort of healthiness in your body, but in your mind as well. And yeah, try not to get bored and just doing different things. So yeah, that was kind of where we got to. And then I guess one great thing, as we're all on Zoom currently, I'd never heard of Zoom before lockdown, even though I thought it was up on my technology. That it was Skype was the only thing for me, but apparently that's like way in the past. So Zoom was a whole new thing to me, and I think Evan, you've joined us in these, but the Friday night quizzes, I know everybody across the country was doing quizzes, but the Friday night quiz definitely became a bit of a thing that you looked forward to at the end of the week.
Yeah, definitely.
And you really got excited about the Friday night quiz. So yeah, that was another real positive about lockdown, and we're still keeping on with the Friday night quizzes. So.
Yeah,
Nice.
We've actually got in a couple of weeks' time, we've got a bit of a Friday night quizzers, not a reunion, but a first union in person. We're all going to meet together for the first time in person and not on a screen. So.
Yeah, that'll be interesting, won't it?
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of sort of an overview of how my lockdown went.
Yeah. And Ken, how about you?
Got a couple of similar bits. So I've got 3 children, and they live with their mum. She's NHS, so frontline, and has worked the whole way through it. So for the first couple of weeks, the children came and stayed with me and my partner, which was great. So we got the home schooling piece up and running, which was interesting, challenging, but good fun. And then my partner has also worked the whole way through it. She works for a food retailer, so has been going to work every day, which has created maybe some good stability. So I drop her off in the morning and pick her up, which keeps a bit of a schedule going. So you're having to get up to do something. We did some bits and pieces around the house. We redecorated. So I think the first couple of weeks, 3 weeks in, probably it's all pretty good. I think when it gets to about halfway, you start to run out of a few bits to do. Walls get a little bit closer. Similar sort of stuff, baking and cooking. You try and find a recipe that would at least last most of the day to make. to take up some time. But you know, it's overall it's been good. I got a puppy, thankfully, just before the lockdown all kicked off. We've been talking to the breeder for a while about her, so she has kept us thoroughly entertained and very busy. So I think a bit of a blessing, to be fair, to have her. We were expecting to get her at the end of May after we were meant to go on a cruise. Obviously cancelled. So the puppy was pushed forward, and she's currently trying to pull out all the cables from the computer, but she's very well behaved, and it was probably a brilliant thing to have.
What's the puppy's name?
Puppy's name's Rambo.
Wow, great name.
She's okay, I say it like that. It's face. Wow. She's a little French bulldog. Look at all those people. Huh?
Lovely.
Hello. And it's been, for me, definitely, my other half has found the whole experience very different because she's worked the whole way through it.
Yeah.
And I think in an industry that hasn't had the same attention as the healthcare industry, everyone knows PPE and all those sorts of stuff, but that didn't happen at the same speed to the other industry. So it caused a bit of anxiousness for us because my kids were still coming to see me every other weekend. My parents and grandparents are shielding, so we're still dropping off food. Their mum working in the NHS, there's a lot of cogs moving there that pose some risk, which is part of the reason I kind of didn't look at doing any of the volunteering stuff, because you end up in that little bit of a problem of where do you go first. So, which is a shame, because I enjoy working. I'm one of those rare people that is very much a workaholic. So it has been a bit of a challenge on that side, but it's been good overall, I'd say.
It's interesting about the homeschooling piece. That was because my youngest is at the transition going up to secondary school in September.
Yeah.
My oldest starts college in September. So the youngest, it was a real difficulty trying to get them to do the coursework. Because they were getting sent home stuff from school, and then there was stuff online to do. But it was to try and get them off a fortnight and
to do this.
Especially if the oldest isn't doing anything.
No,
why do I have to do stuff?
Exactly, because all his exams were cancelled, so he didn't have to worry about his exams. So he's got nothing to do now until he starts his college course. So I'm just trying to get him a job at the minute, get him out working.
It is. It's definitely a challenge, and God, the parents, especially single parents that have got their kids the whole time, and if they're working at the same time, it's a massive challenge. I think even if you're working at home, that's even harder. I found that you're kind of giving 70% to working and 70% to the kids. You're not really putting your full piece on either side, because you're trying to do the two things at the same time. Two of mine are in primary school and one's preschool, so they both had work being sent, but the youngest didn't have anything. And then trying to get between the two, and some of the stuff that they do now with maths and English is well past my forte. So
they don't use abacuses and things anymore.
It had some challenges, for sure. But no, I think our schools, the school that the two go to, they did some fantastic. Every day we were getting stuff, and the teachers seemed to always be online to respond and say good work and good this, and it was really quite impressive. And again, I think it's another one of those industries, kind of similar to that food retail piece, that was maybe not showcased as much as the health profession, who were actually all out there working continually the whole way through it and doing quite an amazing job.
Yeah, absolutely. I think rightly so. The NHS has had a lot of focus put on them. There was a lot of other parts of the industries and parts of the country working just as hard, just keep everyone going. But I think they're more recognised now as key workers, and
very much so.
Yeah, so good. So thinking about mental health, how have we been? Because this is what it's all about, being honest about our mental health. How have the last few months been in terms of your mental health, if you don't mind me asking? It's kind of what you signed up for, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, it's on the title, I suppose. For me, I'd say overall it's been okay. I think I've had some great days. I've had some poor days. I've had days where there is zero motivation to do anything whatsoever, and you kind of just stuck in this lull of not doing stuff. And even when you've got people around you who are trying to kind of coax you into saying, look, everything's all right, we'll do this, it doesn't make too much of a difference. I think for our industry especially, I think kind of once it got close to gearing up again, you'd think that would be a positive, but I think it was also a bit of a negative. There was a lot more anxiousness about that. And then, with everything that's going on in the industry, in the press, with the job losses and all the other things, it's just another layer that goes on top of concern. And I think that's been difficult. I think people similar sorts of experiences from the guys that I've spoken to and friends, and all across the industry. I've got a lot of friends who work on the cruise ship business, and they've been pretty much destroyed over this. And even though it's, when everyone says it's all cruise ships were the problem, but it's a tiny percentage that had COVID cases. It's not even 1%. But they've struggled. People are still on board. They haven't been able to go home. So at least we've been at home. But yeah, definitely ups and downs. Spent a lot more time probably looking at mental health and reading about it. Always interested as before from previous podcasts and stuff I've done with you, Evan, but probably spent a bit more time looking into it, and looking at kind of myself slightly more. When we started, got into the fitness. Again, I was meant to be doing the Kilimanjaro climb at the end of the year, so I thought I'd kind of crack on and carry on doing a little bit of that. But again, 4 weeks in, it kind of then plateaued, and a bit disappointed that same thing, that motivation just disappeared for kind of a couple of weeks. And it's only recently that I've kind of picked it back up, which has been a bit of a challenge. The same, I think, from the drinking point. David touched on it earlier. You're at home. What do you do in the evening? You usually go out or whatever. Suddenly drinking becomes a little bit more frequent, should we say. If you talk to any of the suppliers who are in, and saw the wine merchant that's close to us yesterday, and they said their online sales and their delivery sales have been through the roof for the whole period. They've been closed, but they've been really busy. So I took a conscious decision going into July to not drink in July. I live on the south coast, about 5 minutes away from the beach, which is amazing, but there's lots of places to drink. Yeah. So as soon as the pubs open, which they have, I'm still furloughed. So what do I do with my day? I'll go to the beach, have a pint. Suddenly becomes every day, and you can go down that spiral quite quick. So I saw that coming at the end of June, with the amount that we were drinking at home, and thought, right, July, we'll not drink in July. And I know we're only a week in, but so far so good. We'll see how the rest of it fares. But at the moment, mixed for me. Yeah. Dave?
Yeah, kind of similar in sort of starting and that. As I said before, like a bit of anxiousness around the start of it, but like during the lockdown, I found out, you have your good days and bad days, but I find that I connected a lot more with my family. All my family live up in Scotland still, so I've got no sort of family, like immediate family down here. Obviously, I've got my kids down here, but I see them sort of every other week and that. But I find myself connected a lot more to like my mum and my sister and my dad and stuff. I've got like a half brother, step brother as well. So yeah, it was good to sort of chat to them a lot more than I normally would. Like I might just like before lockdown, I'd maybe pick up the phone once every other week just to say, oh, how you doing? But we actually had some proper meaningful conversations, and it was good just to get that reassurance that they were there if things were feeling a bit low, that I knew I could just speak to them. And I think, again, with friends, like just connecting a bit more with friends and checking on them as well. Unlike the two of you, I've been working through the whole lockdown. So yeah, again with that, it's just making sure that we're reassuring our colleagues and stuff with everything that's going on. And as things start to reopen again, it's just sort of trying to make sure whilst everybody's focused on what controls you're putting in place, social distancing and all that good stuff that is obviously very important, but it's just remembering about people's mental health as they come back to work. I think that's one of the areas that's kind of got forgotten about a little bit with the whole COVID thing. And obviously there's a lot of good stuff on like sort of Instagram and Facebook that I'm like following people that's really positive messaging, but I think just for the wider communities, it's just to try and make sure we can share that great stuff as we move forward, because it's going to impact a lot of people with various reasons, whether it's job losses, whether it's just the general anxiousness about getting back out there when you've been in lockdown for so long, and also just the general sort of unsurety about where it's going to go in the next month, 2 months, 3 months. So I think it's really important that where we can, we promote it as much as we can.
Yeah, and I think from my side, it's been, the beginning wasn't a massive issue for me because I was still working and I was still able to speak to people and do stuff. But as this is going on, and thinking about the future, I think that's really making me anxious, like keeping me up at night type stuff at the moment. And that's the most difficult bit, is because you don't know. I mean, there's all this talk of a second wave and all that sort of stuff. And can the country really survive another lockdown? Probably not. What's the rest of the world going to be doing? And so I think it's, I mean, hearing stories from places like South Africa where, people weren't able to drink or smoke. Like there was no sales of alcohol or cigarettes during the first few months of lockdown for them. Literally, it was all you could buy was food and groceries and stuff. You couldn't buy any drink or any cigarettes and stuff. So that was a massive shock to the system for a lot of Africans.
I think the biggest shock to my system now that we're kind of coming out of lockdown is obviously, as I said at the start, my girlfriend moved in, but I always knew it was just for that lockdown period. So she's moved back to her place. She's still got a place that she's got up in London, so she's moved back now. So it was a bit of a shock to the system when she went, like going from having that like companionship, like being together for like 24/7 to then all of a sudden there's no one there. So that was kind of a bit of a shock and took a bit of getting used to. But obviously it's all going fine now. So we just sort of obviously still see each other when we can, and she comes over and etc. So that's all good.
That's probably a positive sign of how the lockdown went, because if it was she's gone, there would be a lot more.
Never came back.
It would be
even worse. No. And like you say, the future is that unknown piece. So again, it's kind of, because it's always nice to plan ahead, isn't it? Everybody likes to plan ahead, but it's very difficult to plan ahead, which makes just doing general things a lot more difficult.
I think for people like myself and Ken who are on furlough at the moment, seeing things opening up and still being on furlough, I don't know, it's not making me feel comfortable at all. Because you would like to think that as soon as things start opening up, you'd get back to it, but it's going to be a gradual process. And I think it's the industry's got to look out for the industry as a whole, and by doing that and gradually getting people back is probably the best thing long term. But I think for a lot of us in the industry, I think it's a bit concerning.
Very much so. I think also if you look at some of the names that are closing, you look at some of the restaurants, some of the fine dining restaurants in London that are shutting down, institutes that you wouldn't expect to ever close, and then high street names, not kind of more obscure but well known. I know everyone recognise. I think they're the ones that then add to that level of anxiety. If they're closing down, if people are losing their jobs there, what happens to the rest of us that are maybe in places that aren't as well known or behind different brands and so forth. I think touching on your piece about the mental health and making sure that we still talk about it, I think we had such great momentum before COVID on mental health.
Mm.
You know, it was very similar to the movement for the environment. Both things were moving so fast. Everyone was talking about it. It blown up to proportions that we hadn't seen before. To hope that then can be picked up at the end of whatever we're in. I'm really hopeful for, because I think it will be a hugely missed opportunity. You can see that even in the kind of conversations that they're having at government level, we're realizing that we do need to make sure we pick this up. You know, the environmental factor, you can see that in everything, you know, where everyone's using single-use plastic gloves and masks and all those things that we've said, you know, you shouldn't use, don't go near. I'm sure the sight of plastic gloves everywhere is terrible for both of you. But, you know, hopefully we get to that point where we can pick it back up. And the same with mental health, I think it's going to be even more important coming back into this. Even going into a work environment, if you are open, it's a whole new world. It's a different experience.
Yeah, and I mean, I've had a few people contact me on LinkedIn and things like that, just to kind of say, what is your business doing to make sure that people are going to be mentally healthy when they return to work? And unfortunately, I've had to go back to them and say, I don't know, because I'm not there. But you know, it's kind of one of those things where you're kind of either we're going to do really well at it, or we're not going to do it, and then the repercussions are going to be 6 months, 8 months, 12 months down the line when we realize that our workforce actually aren't comfortable being in the workplace anymore because of what they've gone through, and they feel far more comfortable working from home because that's now what they've gotten used to, and that's their now new normal. A few businesses, a few big industry, I mean, Twitter, Google, those sorts of places, they're talking about not having people come back to the workplace at least this year, and investing more in people's working at home situation. What are your thoughts about that? Would you think that's a good thing or a good move?
From my point, you know, just before lockdown, after members, we sent the entire team home, so all my guys were working from home for between kind of 2 weeks and 3 weeks before we were all furloughed. And you know, I saw some great work being produced because they were by themselves. I think with the ability, especially as our business, to have Microsoft Teams and all the platforms that come with it, and still be able to have those conversations, and you know, the technology is so good. You know, we're having this call now, we could be sat around a table. It's the same principle. You know, for me, I still think there is a vital element of our business in hospitality that is people. And I think that even in between events for us, or in between seasons, I think there is still a requirement to have face-to-face team events and meetings and all of those sorts of stuff. I don't think it's an industry that can live from each other's homes and not actually interact. But I think there's a proportion of our business that definitely can. We spend vast amounts of money on offices. You know, if you look at it, and all industries do. I was having the same kind of conversation with my father. Their offices, they've got them all over the world. Where actually, do you need those spaces, or could you go and meet up once every 2 weeks in a hotel conference center rather than having your office for the whole year? I think, you know, from my personal point of view, I'd like to see us come back into an industry for us where maybe we do 3 days at home and 2 days in the office. You know, there's lots of companies that have proven that workforce mentality is better when they're able to work from home, flexible hours. You know, it's not unknown. It's pretty normal. Lots of companies are doing it. I think this is the key moment where we can actually take that and say we should try a little bit more of this. For me, it's a great thing to go forward and do.
Yeah, Dave, what do you think? Well, you've been working from home quite a lot.
I've been working from home predominantly for the first, obviously, few months of lockdown. It's only in the last sort of few weeks I've started to be getting out to some of our venues. But yeah, I mean, the whole Teams thing is great for them meetings. So you can still have essentially a face-to-face meeting virtually. But yeah, I mean, the benefits of it, like Ken said, in doing that sort of split, is again, it's part of the whole sort of mental health and well-being piece, is that like, you know yourself, guys, that we get invited to meetings that might be at the other end of the country, and it takes you 3 hours to get there for like a 2-hour meeting, and then you're like, why was I even at this meeting? Because didn't really talk about anything I needed to input in. So again, it'll just negate a lot of that unnecessary travel and stress and everything else about getting to certain meetings when you can just do it from the comfort of your own dining room or living room or wherever you work from.
Yeah.
And then just get to the point of the meeting, and then it frees up all that time to be more productive with your other work as well. So I think it's a far more efficient way of working for businesses, whilst also looking after the well-being and health of your people as well in a far greater way, in a more positive way.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that are anxious about going back into the workplace, aren't they? Especially if they've been successfully working from home for this period. They're going to be wondering, well, why do I have to go back into an office when I can quite comfortably do it from here? So definitely,
I think, yeah, and also you've got challenges from working. I remember when we first started working from home, a lot of the team found it quite difficult. I think to get into working from home is a challenge. You need to be pretty strict with yourself. You need to have some regiment. You need to get up. You need to do certain things in order to make it work. So I think if it is something, I think we need to make sure, as a business as a whole, as a kind of country, like you kind of were touching on with some of those tech firms, that we invest in home working, not just give someone a laptop and say, right, you're working from home, crack on. You need to make correct. You need to have the right. If you're going to have a chair or a standing desk or whatever it might be, the same that we would in an office environment, we need to make sure that we're matching the two, because otherwise the working from home very quickly becomes a massive negative, and an isolation. You're by yourself. How do we check in on people? I can see everybody every day when they come in the office. I can have a chat with them. I can see if they're happy or anxious or whatever. I can't necessarily do that from behind a camera. So there has to be a bit of a balance between two, and we need to make sure that we do invest in that kind of right push to go forward. Yeah,
I'd agree with that. A lot easier. And I mean, maybe that split, like you said, the 2 and 3 day split, that would be a good balance for a lot of people. They know that they've only got to go in there 2 days a week, then that's a little bit more manageable than going back.
Reduces the amount of people in your office as well. So in terms of social distancing, some of our office spaces, I've worked in some of the stadia where we haven't got big facilities. We've got some pretty small spaces, or we've got some big venues with a lot of people in an office. So to start spreading those people out and create the correct amount of space and make that workplace somewhere that's comfortable is a challenge. But if you're only bringing in a third of your workforce because you're only doing 2 days in the office a week, you can rotate that to make sure the right people are in the right place at the right time. But it would help massively from that perspective as well.
Yeah, true. So thinking about the future, how are you guys thinking from a mental health perspective? What are you doing? What are you thinking about to kind of get yourselves in the right state of mind as we go forward? I mean, obviously, you both seem to have learned some lessons about mental health from the last few months, and even if it's self-reflection or doing a lot more studying. What are you thinking going forward?
I think
be the same.
Yeah, for me again, it's the talking piece. I think is trying not to bottle things up. Like I was saying to you the other week, Evan, with like some of the things that was going on, and you just said like just tell people about it and talk. And I think that's just the biggest thing, and is just talk about it and don't be afraid to talk about it. Like as I said to you, I was like, oh, they might think I'm a bit weak if I say that and stuff. So I think it's just be open and honest, and because if it's with friends or family, they're always going to be receptive to what you're saying and only give you the best advice they can give you. But it's just that listening and talking piece, I think, which is the big thing for me. And I always have my little Evan Talks bags to remind me of that. So
good.
Just look down at my lapel and remember to talk. So.
Good.
Yeah, I mean that is it for me. That's the biggest thing. Like from before and things, I have had a habit in the past of sort of bottling things up, and then it just gets to that point where it gets to the stage where it is too late. So I think the sooner you talk, the better. regardless of what it's about, whether it's your mental health, whether it's financial, whether it's just general personal things. But the sooner you talk about it and the sooner you get it out there, I think it just makes it easier and just sort of releases that pressure in your own head, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And for you, Ken?
To be fair, but very, very similar. I think one thing that this will do is it's going to change kind of everything from the way we interact with people. And I think there's some worry behind that, with masks and all the other bits and pieces, that we will start to isolate ourselves from each other. We don't want to contract anything and all of this with concern, and we start to step away, and then the social distancing, the wording itself, stops you interacting. So for me, that's a concern. So very similar to David, it's about making sure that going forwards that you don't let that happen. And I think it will happen without you even noticing. It will be one of those things that's just in the background that slips in, and suddenly you realize that you've been avoiding everybody and anything because you don't want any issues. So for me, very similar, making sure that we are open, not just with other people, but with ourselves. I think that's first port of call. You need to be honest with yourself. I think every so often you need to take a bit of time to reflect and really look at where you are and what you're doing, and are you being kind of that best possible person that you can be, or are you doing the things that you expect of yourself? And if you're not, how can you do something different? I think reflection for me will be the thing that needs to carry on in a big way, and not being hard on yourself. We didn't get ourselves into this. This has landed in our laps. Like I said, I've always enjoyed working. I've been working since I was about 13 in hospitality, and I've always been employed. So to then suddenly not be employed, you have this period where I start to kind of question myself. Why am I furloughed? Why am I not working? Why am I not doing something about it? And so on. And actually, it's nothing to do with me. I haven't put myself in the pot to be in that position. So I think sometimes you also need to be not as hard as a critic, and I think that will probably help to open up and make you talk and feel that feel slightly more reassured that you can talk to other people, and hopefully people will react in the same way. If everyone does it and everyone has a bit of reflection and kind of some love for each other, then maybe it's a nicer experience and more people will do it.
I mean, I suppose that was one thing that was nice to see, was that a lot of people were just being nice to each other for a while. When we're all going through this, everyone was in the same boat. So everyone was just being a bit nicer to each other, and there wasn't all the negativity, and there was a lot more positive messaging when there could have been a lot more negative. Yep. I think the media were probably showing all the bad stuff that was happening, and like social media actually picked up all the good stuff, and there was a lot of positive messages and things going on. So I think, if there was one positive to come out from my perspective, that would be it. One positive from the last 4 months, Dave, for you? Has it been 4 months?
Yeah, it's 100 days, isn't it? 100 and odd days.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you're counting in days. That's never a good thing.
It was only because when the pubs opened on Saturday, they said it was 100 days.
There we go.
Yeah,
the truth comes out.
True. So
no, I played a game of tennis on Saturday and then went and sat in a beer garden.
Yeah, you definitely were in the pub on Saturday, Dave.
Only briefly.
So one positive to come out of the last 100 days?
I think, like what you just touched upon, I think like one positive for me was just how people did kind of like, there was more of a community in the country. Like there was more of a community spirit than there ever has been in any of the sort of places I've lived in the past. And even like here, I only moved in here where I'm now in January, but like in my previous place, I didn't really speak to many people in the street, but like in this block of flats I live in now, I literally know all my neighbours now, and that's only because of the COVID and the fact that everybody was always just checking in on each other. Like if you saw someone in the street, you'd just be asking them, how you doing? Everything all right with you? Is there anything you need? So it was just a really, really great community spirit, which which you hadn't seen in a while, I think. So
Yeah. Ken, one positive?
Probably very, very similar. I think it's a shame that it's taken something like this for everyone to actually be nice to each other. And I'd agree. You walk around now and people do say hello, whereas it wasn't such a thing beforehand. For me, I think the rainbows in the windows, for me was a massive thing to take away. That kind of, again, that unity, that community piece, something as simple as that, something that children who are naive to the negativity part in most parts, who just kind of see that positive outlook and just want to go and hug people and things. For me, that was something quite unique, that you could drive around or walk around and you would see them nearly everywhere. You know, my kids did them for their great grandparents and their grandparents and stuff like that. And we sent them to them in the post, and I thought that was something pretty special to come out of the whole issue.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, I mean, I always enjoy.
What about you, Evan? What was yours? Evan? What was your positive?
Well, I said my positive at the beginning. People being kind. That was my positive. I mean, there was a lot of. I think for me, living alone, the positive to come out of this was being able to join that Friday night quiz when you guys invited me to join it. And I mean, I think that was the one thing that kept me going, especially knowing that was my like. I was thinking about it last week actually, because I still get showered and put on an aftershave and put on a nice clean shirt before a quiz. Nobody's anywhere near me. But
I know, it was good to just get dressed up. Like we did a few of the nights where we just got dressed up, and it was like you were going out, but you were just like going
like the dinner dates and things
from your bedroom to your living room. So.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's weird to think that actually I've met people through this situation. I've met new people through this situation.
Yeah.
I've probably made some new friends through this situation through doing that quiz. And that's mind-boggling because I'm nowhere near you guys, but we've actually managed to make friendships and actually get to know people. So, yeah, I think that's also probably...
Keep some of the normality as well, isn't it? So,
Yeah,
it's been good.
Well, I always enjoy speaking to you two guys. So thank you very much for coming back for the penultimate episode of Evan Talks. Like I said, the most requested, probably the two most listened to, by my brother's one. So yeah, no, thank you very much for being a part of it. And I am hoping that we get to see each other in real life fairly soon and we get back to normality fairly soon.
Yes, please.
But yes, please. I mean, I've never missed walking around a field as much as I've missed.
Well, hopefully there'll be plenty more walks around the
field. Yeah, so thank you very much for being a part of this, and for both of your support through the Evan Talks podcast situation, because you two have been kind of keeping me going and keeping me posting every other week and making sure that the podcast carries on talking. So
thank you, Evan, for doing it. It's been an honor to even be part of it with you, and I think everything you've done throughout this has been fantastic and really positive message to the wider community, and yeah, great job for you. So yeah, well done.
Thank you. Definitely, and I totally agree with David on that. I think it's nice that you've got a group of chaps doing it. I think that is a big change as well. So it's been amazing. So yeah, thank you.
No, thanks very much, guys. And for everyone else, I will be back in 2 weeks with the last episode of Evan Talks. A little bit emotional saying that, but yeah, the last episode of Evan Talks. So thank you very much, and we'll speak to you then.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you for listening to Evan Talks. And if you'd like to know any other information about Evan Talks, or you would like to get involved, please check out evan-talks.com for more information.